Askreddit thread. Who is wrongly portrayed as a villain? Albert Göring. Hermann Göring was Hitler's second in command and obviously one of the worst people to ever live. Albert Göring was his little brother and wrongfully seen as a bad guy just because of his relation. Albert immigrated to Austria when Hitler took power because he didn't want to live under the Nazi regime. He used his brother to get immigration permissions to help persecuted Jews, or sometimes he just faked his signature. When Austria joined the Third Reich, the SS forced the Jews of Vienna to scrub a street to humiliate them. Albert joined them, so the SS stopped the whole thing because they didn't dare to humiliate the brother of the second most powerful Nazi. Afterwards, Albert immigrated to Czechoslovakia because he still didn't want to live under the Nazis, where he worked as a manager for Skoda. After the Nazis took Czechoslovakia, Skoda designated a company that was critical to the war effort, which meant they could use concentration camp labor. Albert sent trucks to concentration camps, requested prisoners as workers, and then had them set free in remote areas so they could flee. He also committed acts of sabotage and had contact to resistance fighters. He was arrested several times by the SS, but his brother always got him out. But because he was Hermann Göring's brother, he was arrested by the Americans after the war and kept in prison for a year. He was released after it turned out that one of the Jews he saved was the father-in-law of one of the American officers at the prison. Afterwards, he was arrested by the Czechs and imprisoned for another year, even though the Americans had verified the story and cleared him. After the war, he was socially shunned because of his last name, which he refused to change, so he died relatively poor and lonely. The Jewish Chronicle even called him to be honored as one of the righteous among the nations, which honors people who risked their lives to help Jews during the Holocaust. Everyone agrees his acts were good enough to warrant it, but there's doubt in his life was ever in any danger, since his brother kept protecting him, despite their political differences. Wow, that's really interesting to read. It kind of reminds me about the nephew of Hitler, who enlisted in the American Navy and made 2 propaganda films against the Third Reich, and wrote an essay titled Why I Hate My Uncle. Always fun seeing your family mentioned on Reddit. Wait, how are you related? I'm the great-great-grandson of author Göring, a relative that fled to Canada after internal family affairs. Mr. Wilson. Dennis was a rotten little kid, and it's not Mr. Wilson's fault that he lived next door. My name is Mr. Wilson, and I'm here to say I'm gonna smack your ass in a major way. What are you doing in my basement? Get out of here. Get out of here. Let me learn you about that butt ball. 1. Never tell your parents. 2. Never tell your parents. You're gonna wish your mother wasn't scared of me. Yeah, hello, Mrs. the Menace. Dennis came over and fell down the stairs again. He's so clumsy. You should put him in ballet. That'll make him good at balancing. The mom and the new boyfriend in Miss Doubtfire. Robin Williams' character has Peter Pan syndrome. People like that stop maturing emotionally at some point. A lifelong friend of mine is the same way. I love him to death, but he can drive me up the wall. He's 31 and it's as if he sees life through the eyes of a child. I too have a 31-year-old friend like this. It really comes out when he talks about relationships. The guy's never had a long-term one and just has some really high school level views on how they should work. I'm married, one of our close friends is married with 2 kids, but this guy makes weird ass judgments on how both of our respective marriages are doing because of his views. He actually once thought, my relationship must be failing because when he and a few other people were over and my husband came home, I didn't get up, cross the entire room and hug and kiss him in front of everyone. Dude, I see him every day. We kiss often. We hug enough. But not in front of people like that. It's just awkward for everyone. That reminds me of when Monica and Chandler had their first fight and Chandler assumed the relationship was over. Monica goes, if all your relationships ended the first fight, they would only last. Oh, I'm 50 and probably fit that bill. Never married. I do what I want when I want. Never really intentionally took any big responsibilities simply because I never want to have any big responsibilities, etc. Can you make a case against so-called Peter Pan syndrome on its own merits? That is, a case against that it doesn't involve being mean or bad to people? Obviously, if I'm missing commitments or taking advantage of people, that's bad. But people without Peter Pan syndrome do that plenty too. Just curious. Along the same lines, I've always felt that the guy in Liar Liar that the mom hooks up with after splitting with Jim Carrey was given the shit end of the stick. Poor guy did nothing but try, you know? Poor tryhard. I was a kid when this movie came out, and it really made me sad when the new guy tried to do the claw thing with his hand, and the kid was just like, no. I mean, my parents were divorced too, but I was alright. But I was also taught to be polite. Like, I should know not to try and steal the dad's bit, though. Maybe not a dick move, but really fucking stupid. Yeah, but when you're trying to bond with your future stepchild, you look for anything. Q. He saves Enterprise every time he shows up. You should make the argument that his sole purpose is to help humanity realize the potential to become more than just simple organic creatures. He may also have saved the Federation from the Borg by forcing the encounter at J25. I guess this is a Star Trek reference that I don't get. Lady Obishi from Princess Mononoke. Mononoke. Princess Mononoke. The more you watch that movie, the more there are no heroes and no villains. Except the dude who shot the Eldritch Nature God. Like, come on. The mercenary monk guy was totally a bad guy. The swarmy backstabbing fuck. Let's see. Every innocent dude with an erection that Forrest Gump punches in the face. What? Just a series of erect and unpleasantly surprised bar guys, all holding their cheeks and wondering why that slow kid just decked them. Every innocent dude with an erection that Forrest Gump punches in the face. Furthermore, we've led to believe Jenny is all over the country banging different dudes all the time. She has had sex with Forrest Gump once and has a smart kid with him. I call bullshit. I never took it to be that we're supposed to truly take it as fact that the kid is Forrest's. I always took it to be an open question for the viewer to wonder about something that Forrest himself never seems to be bothered questioning. There was that guy getting all touchy-feely in the car, Jenny, and the guy who hit Jenny. It seemed to be pretty consensual, the guy in the car, and Forrest just mistook Jenny hitting her head against the window as a sign of violence. Squidward. The more I paid attention, the more I realized that SpongeBob was the asshole. For the same reason, Tom, Jerry is an asshole, except in Park and Recs, where it's more the other way around. Shut up, Gary. Frankenstein's monster. All of the monster flaws can be traced to Victor Frankenstein's abandonment of his creation. Nobody taught the monster how to live, and it was immediately reviled by everyone. But nevertheless, the monster forgives Victor in the end. Victor is definitely the bad guy. Yet at Halloween all over America, we mock that poor monster. I feel like it would help if there were more adaptations of the story that were accurate to the book. I think I saw one in high school, and even then it got ridiculous. The most accurate representation I can remember is the Wishbone episode. Van Helsing at least didn't portray him as a mindless beast. I remember reading the Frankenstein book in high school. I think it was like senior English class or something. I was like, this is a really good book. It's nothing what I thought it was compared to all the, how Frankenstein is portrayed in modern pop culture. The monster was very eloquent. He had a very great grammar. He knew how to talk very well. It's just he was really ugly, so people didn't like him. Knowledge is knowing that Frankenstein is not the monster. Wisdom is knowing that Frankenstein is the monster. Zooey Deschanel's in 500 Days this summer. First time I saw it, I was about 18. I thought she was just an entitled asshole stringing some guy along. Later on, I realized that she is put into a situation where the guy tries to make her into something she isn't. Some fantasy filled with expectations that she doesn't want to fulfill. Nor is she obliged to. Not to say What's-His-Face is wrong or a bad person. Or that Zoe was completely free of guilt. Just that it was a bit preemptive for him to expect everything he did from what started as a fling, where she clearly stated her intentions. I really need to watch that movie. Here's how the movie goes. Tom, you're quirky. Let's date. Okay, but nothing serious. Okay, a short time later. Penis. More time passes. Let's be serious now. I don't want to be. I said that. No, you're wrong. You do want to be serious with me. No, we are done. Bye. More time passes. Why are you serious with that other guy? Because I am. You said you should be serious with me. No. Tiny bit of time passes. Hi, I'm Tom. Hi, I'm Autumn. The end. Paragraph movie summaries. Also, she said at the very beginning that she wasn't looking for a relationship. I can relate to this. I thought she was a terrible person for treating him that way. Then I realized he's the one who got too clingy. She was like, this isn't what I'm looking for, and no doubt, which is a perfect reasonable thing to do. Then the dude spends the rest of the movie feeling sorry for himself. Napoleon. He tried to get rid birth privileges. He tried to get rid birth privileges? Like, tried to get rid of birth privileges? Establish freedom of religion and have merit-based government. The rest of European countries believed religious monarchs took exception to him and vilified him. You know he is seen as a hero in the East, right? The East being Poland. The people in charge in 2012. They needed to save the human race, not necessarily every human they can. They need to maximize their ability to survive and to do what they needed to, and they needed money to pull it off, so only the rich people and whoever they saw necessary could go. Jim Lahey. Sure, he's a drunken lunatic, but on a deeper level, he really does care about the trailer park and the people who live in it. And everything Ricky and Julian, and to a lesser degree Bubbles, do is actively harmful to the quality of life there. He's not wrong for wanting them to get the fuck out of there. Nice try, Lahey. You're really fucked in the head, you know. Nah, but you're right. But I don't know if he's ever been a villain so much as an antagonist. Dinkelberg. He's never done anything wrong. He's an upstanding, kind man, a good citizen, and a friendly neighbor. And all of those things just make you despise him all the more. Envy is a great beast that Mr. Turner has yet to conquer. Yeah, but they have brunch. Dinkelberg, Dink, double income, no kids. Now you know why it's really heartbreaking that Timmy's father hates Dinkelberg so much. He resents having Timmy. Ouch. But they address this in one episode. Timmy's dad tells Timmy after Timmy joins a carnival that the other thing their family has over Dinkelberg is a son. Stockholm Syndrome. There's also that episode of Fairly Odd Parents. It's like, oh, all my hopes and dreams died years ago. It's like, how long ago was that, Dad? It's like, how old are you again? I wonder if someone will mention that. Everybody's always doing the Dinkelberg thing. Dual income, no kids. My thoughts exactly. Dinkelberg, the landlord, and rent. First of all, it was super fucking cool of him to let you live there for free for an entire year. Did you actually think that was going to last forever? Second, just pay your fucking rent, you little brats. On the other hand, the landlord did, in fact, promise that he would let them live there rent-free. The real moral of the rent is always get it in writing. Yeah, it seems when you're young, you tend to identify with the main cast, but as you get older, you identify more with the guy that just wants the money he's owed for all he's done for them. Also, fuck the musician guy. He has the ability to sell his guitar and purchase a car and enough supplies for a cross-country trip, and then sells the car to buy another guitar. That also could have easily made rent money working 5 days a month. What a prick. Even when I was younger, I couldn't identify the main cast. I always felt like they just needed to get jobs and pay their damn rent. It could have saved lives. Usually the landlord evicting someone is a process that can take months. The landlord gives you shit about past due rent and letting you slide. He's really doing you a favor. No sympathy for people making a living renting artificially scarce property to others. He isn't just their landlord, he is their friend who used to be one of them. He married a rich lady, now has money. He's betraying people who acted as family. Ugh, still, letting people live with you rent-free is really good. Sid from Toy Story. I have nothing against the movie, but I realize as an adult how weird it is for a child to be demonized for altering his toy. The shit he did was pretty damn creative. Stealing from his sister and messing with fireworks is bad, but I don't think kids modifying toys should be treated as such. Oops replied to this as a copycat thread before I saw the one copy-paste. If taping fireworks to things is wrong, then I don't want to be right. I'm going to post the same comment but looked to see if someone beat me to it. Yeah, seriously, what's his crime? Being a pest to his sister, taking apart and reassembling what he could only assume are inanimate objects? We and my friends did our share playing with fireworks, so I certainly would be a hypocrite if that bothered me. I actually got into an argument with someone on Reddit about this in the past. Doofenshmirtz. I don't know. He keeps trying to take over the entire tri-state area, though. This story reminds me of the scene from Himym. Marshall, you're telling me that when you watch The Karate Kid, you don't root for Daniel-san? Who do you root for in Die Hard? Hans Gruber, charming international bandit. In the end, he dies hard. He's the title character. What about The Breakfast Club? The teacher running detention. He's the only guy in the whole movie wearing a suit. I've got one. The Terminator. What's the name of the movie, Robin? Who among us did not shed a tear when his little red eyes went out in the end? And he didn't get to kill all those people. I'm sorry, I just get so emotional. I've never watched a movie with you again. They don't even try to help him. I'd like to make this edit out to Alan Rickman. Rip Snape Gruber. What the hell is Himym? That sounds funny. How I Met Your Mother. Rip Gruber, I'm going to watch Die Hard one more time. One last fall for all of us. The international charming bandit who dies hard. The casino owner from Ocean's 11. He's a businessman who made all his money legally. He might be an asshole, but stealing millions of dollars from him and innocent rich people who had money in the casino is still a crime. You don't have to break the law to be a villain, but stealing millions of dollars is worse than being a legal asshole. He had Danny tortured and went after the families of people who stole from him. He was a ruthless gangster. Jack Kevorkian. While not a radical thought in 2016, he was portrayed as a monster by the media. He was often portrayed in the media as Dr. Death. However, many considered him a hero as he helped set the platform for reform. He famously said, "Dying is not a crime." Who's this dude? Was an American pathologist, euthanasian activist, painter. Oh, okay, euthanasia. Every homewrecker. People would rather blame the third person than the actual person who made the commitment, promises, etc. That's true. He's still 100% a villain, but I've always found Voldemort quite an inspirational character. He came from nothing with no possessions and excelled through school in a culture he had absolutely no exposure to. Before this, he had learned to control his abilities as a 10-year-old, who not only didn't have a wand, but also didn't know magic even existed. Dumbledore himself would go on to say that Voldemort was probably the most brilliant student Hogwarts had ever seen. It was thought that the Chambers of Secret was only a myth, yet Voldemort found it. It was thought that the unsupported flight was magically impossible, yet Voldemort figured out how to do it. Dumbledore, again, would say that Voldemort pushed the boundaries of magic further than anyone before him. Despite the support and followers he acquired, Voldemort never really hid from confrontation. In the Battle of the Seven Potters, rather than delegate, Voldemort himself went straight for Mad-Eye Moody, the most famous dark wizard catcher of all time. He did this confident in his own abilities. What happened when Voldemort came face to face with Dumbledore? Supposedly the only person he ever feared in the Ministry, Voldemort didn't run. He battled and even matched him. Despite the fact Dumbledore was in possession of the Elder Wand, Voldemort only left because he knew Dumbledore had backup on the way, and the form of a contingent of Auroros. Above all, though, it's worth looking at what happened at the end of the final book and how this compares with the other villains. Voldemort had just seen his final Horcrux destroyed, and also seen all his followers either killed or desert him. Again, did he run? No. Did he ask for forgiveness? No. He stuck to his principles in the face of his greatest fear, death, and fought for what he believed in. Well, that's good and all, but I feel the real reason he doesn't run from anything is because he's kind of a psychopath. Besides, Mad-Eye couldn't have killed him anyway if he had the Horcruxes. Not killed him completely, but Moody could have certainly fucked him up a bit. To me, Voldemort really is an example of a psychopath. Psychopaths have a general lack of both fear and empathy response. The lack of empathy in Voldemort is obvious, but as you pointed out, he also seems to not get afraid. It might just be the result of his brilliance and power, but some of the other little things really make me think that. And I think this is why Umbridge boils the blood more than Voldemort. Yeah, he is kind of a psychopath. The anti-spirals. The spirals will literally destroy the universe, and they're doing their job to prevent that. Not that genocide is an actual solution. Also, destruction of the universe is better than creating a static universe where not even destruction can be caused. And heck, they created artificial universes. Just use spirals as much as you want and regularly create a perfect copy of the universe. Javert from Les Mis. He is doing his job. Huh. I always thought Loki from the first Thor movie was less villainous than portrayed. He was making choices that made sense from the perspective of the governance of the medieval kingdom. His asshole brother starts a war and the king kicks him out, then becomes incapacitated. Loki steps up, trying to keep Thor from running back to Asgard to start a dangerous power struggle in the middle of an ongoing conflict with a foreign enemy. Loki even kills the enemy head of state himself. Then Thor's friends try to get him back in Asgard to start the Civil War, which is treason, and Loki acts to stop them. When that fails, he decides to finish off the enemies, which were Thor's fault to begin with. None of that is wrong if your goal is to prevent the unnecessary death of your citizens. Why should Loki expect to find himself in a superhero movie where Thor will have a complete change of character in a few days rather than a political drama? If there's a real villain in Thor, it's Odin. He's a terrible father. In the comics, this is often the case. He's a very fickle father who makes some horrendous decisions. I disagree. Loki seeks only his own elevation. He holds strong resentment and jealousy towards his brother Station, and also resents his father. Thor overcomes his flaw, and that is what will make him a great leader of Asgard. Loki will never learn from his flaws, because he doesn't see them. Loki blames everyone else for his problems and actions. Thor overcomes his flaws because it's superhero movies. Stick Loki into Game of Thrones and he'd be one of the good guys, in my opinion, or at least not a villain. No, he'd be playing Game of Thrones with the best of them. Think Littlefinger. I don't think Loki has shit on Littlefinger. Tom, he just wanted some peace and those assholes mouse came in and ruined them up. Nikolai Machiavelli. Some see The Prince as a treatise on evil manipulation of the people. I don't know what this is from. Mr. Freeze. He just wants to save his wife. P.S. The next 252 doesn't count. Wait. P.S. The new 52 doesn't exist. Wasn't that a new thing they added for the animated series? Yes. And the animated Mr. Freeze is so popular, they adopted it into the comics. Same with Harley Quinn. Empire did nothing wrong. Alderaan was an inside job. Lasers can't melt iron cores. Alderaan shot first. People who work in orphanages. I mean, those people do highly important work for vulnerable children, yet any movie set in an orphanage usually portrays the workers there as abusive sociopaths. I mean, I get it, it's a thing that happens, but it's really shitting on what is supposed to be a majority of good people who work in these important facilities. As I have often discussed about history with people from around the world, the Finnish World War II President Risto Ryti is often portrayed as a criminal in many places since he was sentenced to jail as part of the Finno-Soviet peace negotiations. Soviets claimed him as a war criminal. President Ed Rooney. Ferris Bueller was a juvenile delinquent. The guy who hunts rabbits. To be fair, that rabbit is an asshole. Skylar White. Spoilers ahead, I like this one. Reddit and viewers hated Skylar White. She had major character flaws, like Walter White, without the cool anti-hero flair. Skylar White was not a villain. Unlikable, sure, but not a villain. The deliberately wrote flaws that we find appalling in Skylar's character, like her habit of smoking while pregnant, her whiny attitude, her adultery, her two-faced involvement in wild schemes where she opportunistically swayed between the status as a schemer or victim. All these qualities are more written to somehow prove an illusionary balance between her and Walt's transgressions. Even though I'd argue our emotional disdain for certain actions like smoking while pregnant or perpetual whining aren't exactly equivalent to Walt's evil downward spiral. She really didn't have any redeemable character traits. Now, what I think most viewers forget is we meet her when her family's life went to shit. Breaking Bad is a story about how people respond to adversity. Skylar did not do so well with the discovery of her husband's cancer and his descent into drug lord infamy. And that's why Skylar perfectly fits the question. She wasn't a villain. She was a deeply flawed person who handled all the serious problems in her life poorly, hypocritically, and indecisively. Essentially, I believe Skylar was written as just the average middle-class person who then discovered they were married to some Machiavellian sociopath. And I think what people forget is Skylar was left as a survivor. She was the one who's going to have to actually live out her life and struggle to regain normalcy, living with the consequences of her husband's decisions. She has to raise her daughter and son alone. Walt's redemption was his martyrdom, saving his student and dying with his passion. That will be her true test for redemption, whether after all these years she can live her life and move on. She can choose to continue to be the victim or rise to the challenge of adversity. I think in the final scenes with her, we met a Skylar who had been vindictive of her husband's past and gave viewers hope that she and Walt Jr. would be able to move on. My apologies for the screed. I'm a bit hyped of a coffee this morning. I happily welcome any objections. I know she is not well liked around these parks. Yeah, I'm just messing up all my words today. Marie Antoinette. I always thought Magneto has been wrongly accused of being completely a villain. Sure, he's done terrible things, but he is Jewish and witnessed the Holocaust as a young boy. Later, he discovers his mutant powers and sees how fearful humans are of mutants. Can you really blame him? Even though his methods are extreme, I think his overall goal is not letting 2 of his people wiped from the earth. Magneto's been around for a long time, so each writer has done different things with him, but when I was following the X-Men comics, there were definitely times when they did a really good job of blurring the villain line. I mean, at different points he was a member of the X-Men and even led them at one point. They made him pretty sympathetic. Nathan Prescott from Life is Strange, who was mentally ill being manipulated. The psychologists in What About Bob? The poor guy's trying to go on vacation with his family, and a fucking clinically insane person tries to tag along. If his wife tried to convince me to let him come, I would pull her aside and be like, "Girl, who is the psychologist here? This is not healthy or professional." What About Bob? That sounds like a great movie. What About Bob? Pre-transformation Ebenezer Scrooge. He earned his damn money, and people who owe him knew they would have to repay their loans when they signed. Sure, he could have been more generous with his wealth, but when generosity becomes an expectation, it ceases to be generosity. If your boss told you had to work on Christmas, you'd think he was a villain. True. Alright, that's it.